In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to master China on F1 2025, going through intricate details of my braking points, my turn-in zones, as well as my acceleration zones around this wonderful circuit. Seriously, it's one of my favorite on the calendar. After that, I'm going to show you how to adjust the time trial setup to make it applicable for online races or career mode races against the AI or your friends. At the very end of the video, we're going to go through a lap what's full speed in qualifying and showing how I deploy my ERS mode to be maximizing the power of the engine around the lap, lowering my lap times and increasing my potential. Into the final corner, this is where the lap really starts, as you want to be shooting yourself off this apex with as much momentum as you could possibly get. Avoid hitting the inside curbing, as that may just unsettle the car, and don't go too wide over this outside curbing either, quite simply as it may bottom out the car and suck you wide off the track, invalidating your current lap and maybe even your next lap if you're in that situation. So just better to be avoiding it. As we're going down the pit straight right now, of course, you can see the grid boxes, but there's a really interesting thing here. If you drive parallel sort of in this line and you're just going to be underneath where the starting lights are, there are some bumps on the circuit, and that's going to be slowing down your car, of course, because the floor of the car hits the bumps and generates friction, and that will be slowing you down. You actually want to go to the right-hand side of the starting lights here, and that avoids the bumps on the pit straight, meaning you can get a better top speed down this mini straight. Well, it's quite a long straight, but compared to the back straight, what we're going to get to in Sector 3, it's quite small indeed. But with that being said, we're arriving now to corner 1. And you want to be all the way on the outside here, utilizing all of the curb possible, lifting the throttle. In 7th gear now, you'll be approaching into the first apex. There are a lot of bumps here in turn 1, so if you overstress, overload, and overpush that front left tire, you will be susceptible for the car bottoming out and then running even wider as the corner progresses on, and that'll be disaster for your first sector here in China. You have some options on how you could be dealing with that though, and you can put 2 wheels on the inside curbing here on your initial turn-in. This will be better than running wide, but it will still unsettle the car a little bit, so be ready to catch the oversteer. In the perfect situation, you just put 2 wheels where the white line is and let the car naturally float around the rest of the corner. As you get to about this point, it's really difficult to be smooth on your pedal inputs, as the car's wanting to slow down, accelerate, just due to how long this first apex of the lap is and the front left tire is overheating. So really just be thinking about your pedal inputs and keeping your minimum speed as high as possible while retaining the optimal racing line that I'll show you in the full speed example after this part of the video and at the end of the video as well, like I mentioned earlier. So now you have reached the clipping point of the apex, and this is quite critical to remember. As you can see, there's a rain gully here, what's completely flat, just painted past the white line. But the further you go on the inside curbing here, the serrations get more aggressive, and that means that it'll be harder to be driving on top of them without unsettling the car balance. So just keep that in mind. Ideally, you just want to be putting 2 wheels where the rain gully is, because then you get more track width without the car being unsettled by the balance of those serrations. Going down into turn 2, really easy to pinch your front left tire here, and you want to be very gentle on the brake pedal initially because you're traveling downhill, and when you're traveling downhill, you have less braking ability in the car. When you're traveling uphill, you have more braking ability, in a very simple explanation. That's a lot to do with the weight transfer of the car, what we'll cover in a separate video to try and keep this video a bit more condensed and straight to the point. Going down into this corner now, you can really see how aggressive the hill is, and you really, just like I say, want to be careful on your brake input to not lock a tire here. Hugging the inside white line, but not going on the inside curbing, as, well, the same reason as the corner before. This painted rain gully is flat and gives good grip, but the further you go on top of the curbing, then it's just going to make more serrations on the curb and going to be unsettling the balance of the car. You want to be keeping the car tight here on the exit. In real life, they run a lot wider. That's simply because they have to do more combined load on the acceleration and be managing the traction slip, whereas in the game, it's a lot easier to be managing the traction slip, so we can keep the car tighter, travel less of a distance, and then be maximizing lap time in that way. So you you'll see that again in the full speed example, how that looks in a hot lap. Running to the outside of the track, the curbing is very flat here, so you can use it if you need to have the extra track width to be back to 100% power sooner rather than later. Minimize the distance, 2 wheels on the inside curbing, but again, that's only gaining you fractions of a second, but it's worth having. Towards the end of Sector 1, remember what I said about downhill produces less braking efficiency just because of how the gravity and the weight transfer is working, so just keep that in mind, and that's why it's very easy to lock a brake into this corner. Just as you go past the 100-meter board, then you're going to be to 100% braking pressure, so about 95, 90 meters before the corner. Going down into third gear and braking on this outside curbing because it's very flat and it's producing enough grip to warrant being over the outside curbing as it opens up the corner by about a tire width and a half. Going into the actual apex here, you want to be over this rain gully, but if you can avoid getting on top of this curb, it's better to avoid it. Just going into nose camera right now. Ooh, have to cycle back through. There we go. Lovely job, Leigh. As you can see, the rain gully is flat and is still producing good grip, but as you go on top of the curbing, it's very aggressive, and you can sort of see the suspension moving now as we go to the offset T-camera again, and you can see that it's going to be upsetting the car quite a lot as you're going to be searching to get back to the power. On the exit here, it's better to be avoiding the exit curbing if you can, but if you do understeer wide in that corner, you can still get good traction by keeping the car straight on this exit curbing and pulling it off as soon as possible. Sometimes it's better to be a little bit ragged on the exit there and just dealing with a car moving around on the exit curbing, and that can be a-okay, but ideally you're not on top of the exit curbing in my opinion. In a qualifying lap, here's an advantage to be gained. In a racing lap, you'll be all the way to the outside here, so you open up the corner as much as possible, minimizing the stress on the tyre and minimizing tyre deck. But in a qualifying lap, that doesn't really matter. So you can actually approach from a much tighter angle, and you'll be in 7th gear, and then actually this corner has so much friction to it, and the car is so highly loaded that you'll be downshifting to 6th while completely flat out to keep the engine revs as high as possible, gaining momentum throughout this corner versus your rivals. You'll be on the outside of the track here. Again, the curbing is very flat, so it's a-okay to be turning in on it, and you're looking to gain more track width as you throw the car into the right-hander. There are some micro bumps as you go throughout this corner, so just keep that in mind. That may cause sudden understeer in the car, and you want to be avoiding the inside curb zone here, as it's going to make the rear of the car slide around just a little bit, overheat the surface, what is going to have a critical effect when you get to the next 2 corners. But before we get there though, you really want to focus on keeping the car controlled and to the inside of the track here, so then you can be braking and turning in on this outside curbing. There's not really a reference marker for this corner. It's a lot just by feel and how much grip you anticipate to be underneath you, but this sort of runoff area to the right hand side can be a half decent reference for you to be using. But like I say, there is not a real reference marker here, and everything's happening so quick, you really have to rely on your instincts to be getting it perfect. I like to be going through this corner in the 4th gear and keeping the momentum as high as possible. Through the left-hander, like I just previously mentioned about 30, 45 seconds ago maybe, not sure on the exact time. We can check that after the video is recorded. But anyway, back to the point. The rear tyres are already going to be struggling a lot with the overheating due to the previous 2 corners being very fast and a very high load, and the surface of the tyre is going to be screaming out for grip. So actually the fastest way into this corner is by sliding a little bit on the rear axle, getting it rotated, then you can get it as fast as possible, straight line on the exit and back to full power. Avoid taking the inside curbing if you can, and you naturally want to gravitate just to be on the outside here, and you can just tickle the outside curbing with your tires here, and it's not going to be optimal, but it will just be okay to get away with, and then getting back to power flat out for the left-hander, and you don't need to risk taking too much curb here. Just 2 wheels where the rain gully is nice and good. And then on the exit here, again, 2 wheels on the outside curbing, but if you go too wide, the car will bottom out and you'll lose maybe a quarter of a tenth, if not more, depending on your ride height setup. And again, it's just better to avoid if you can. Running down to the end of Sector 2, the start of Sector 3, You're going to be braking about 80 meters before the corner. Again, no distinct reference marker, but you want to really use up this extra track usage here. Because this curbing is very flat and very similar to the end of Sector 1 earlier in the video, because it's flat, it's worth using up the extra track width to be gaining more of an advantage as you turn in for a really difficult chicane here. The same rules apply as corner 1 in sector 1. You can see, as we just need to go back to the nose camera, there we go, lovely jubbly, excuse the hard is in the way, slightly anyway. You can see the rain gully is flat with the surface of the road, whereas the serrated curb gets very aggressive the more you go on top of it. So, ideally what you want to be doing is just having two wheels where the rain gully is, and that means that the car is not going to be bouncing around underneath you. If you are going to use this curb, commit to using the curb and get two wheels really high on top of it, but anticipate the car sliding around on the exit. It's not going to be optimal, but it's better than going wide. So if you feel like you've outbroken yourself into this corner, what's very easy to do, a little tip for you, for me, is going to be, instead of running wide and then compromising even further in the corner, start turning in earlier, extend the distance of the braking zone, cut across the inside curbing, and it's not going to be optimal, but it's going to be better than running wide and sacrificing too much of your racing line for this following corner. And that is generally quite a good tip. If you are knowing that you're about to brake late and run wide, you can actually start pointing your car towards the corner a little bit earlier. It will risk locking up the front left tyre just slightly, but it means that you can get to the apex and be dealing with the problem ASAP. Whereas if you know that you're running wide, you don't deal with the problem and you just let the car run straight, you can recover the situation to get a phenomenal exit, but you also just might miss the apex by too much to even salvage something from it. Anyway, going into the right-hander here, and this is really where it gets interesting. Avoid taking the inside curbing serrations, and again, just run up where the rain gully is for the optimal racing line. But I don't like going all the way to the outside here. The reason for that is you spend more time turning and accelerating at the same point of the track. What you can do in real life, as we sort of mentioned in corner 2 earlier in the video, in real life, it's a bit better to have combined load on the car, but in the game, you have a lot more grip available to you. So you don't actually want to go fully to the outside of the track here. You want to be leaving about half a car width, maybe even less than half a car width, to the outside of the track, just about here, because what that means is you can open up the steering wheel a bit sooner, what allows you to get back to the power even faster. And that is just a little bit of a sneaky little advantage you could be taking, and it also shortens the distance as you run through the right-hander. You don't need to run straight up to the top of the track here. You can keep the car low in the corner, low in the banking, and minimize your distance on to the back straight. Again, there's little differences that can make a big advantage towards the end of a race, or make the difference in a pole position lap. Coming towards the end of the straight now, of course, DRS will be wide open and you're braking just as you're getting to the 100-meter board on the left-hand side. So you're probably about 100% brake pressure, 90 meters before the corner, and you'll be going down into third gear. Again, using the outside curbing here is it's very flat and it offers good enough grip to warrant being on the curb. Into the right-hander here of the hairpin. Again, it's so aggressive with the serrations of the curbing that you don't actually want to be on top of the curb. One, because the serrations, but two, it makes the angle of the corner so tight, it's difficult to get a good exit on to the mini straight after this. So ideally, you slightly lock up the rears, you get a fantastic rotation with a micro drift, and you just have two wheels on the inside rain gully, and then that can let you rotate around very nicely and avoid the outside curbing here. Ideally, you get as close to it as possible to maximize your track width, but do not go on top of it. Once the car is straight and at 100 power, then you start bringing the car over to the right-hand side, and there isn't really a distinct braking reference to this final corner either, but you're braking just after the 50-meter board, and then again, no distinct turning in reference, and there's a lot of guesswork considering how much rear grip you have, how much the tires are worn out, what fuel load you are, but there's a lot of options to get this corner wrong on the F125 game and have a decent result for it. So, if you go a little bit wide here and only put two wheels on the inside curbing, it's not the end of the world. But ideally, what you want to be doing is cutting the inside grass, and that is the perfect way to be doing it. So you get two wheels over the inside grass, right up to the where the where the white line is. Eventually got my words out there. But that is the ideal way to be doing it. You can see that there's grass on the inside tire, but you have a long enough straight following this corner to wear off the grass, so it does not affect you for turn 1. On the exit, like we talked about at the start of this video, don't run too wide, otherwise the car will bottom out and drag you to the outside curbing and then off the circuit. And if you want a qualifying lap, keep the car nice and straight to the right hand side of the track, so you minimize the distance and maximize your potential. And that's been a 14-minute lap here at China. We're absolutely cooking with that lap time. Anyway, going into the setup page, we've just taken the setup from the world record, who's Lucas Blakely at the moment. So this is what the setup will be looking like from time trial: 39, 32, 90, 100, all the way to the left, 37, 117, 22, 45, 53 bias, and then 54 as well as a different option if you want to be taking it. And then the tire pressures are set like this. To be honest, I would straight away make this a bit more applicable for an online race by going maximum on the tire pressure, because the tires overheat dramatically on this new Formula 1 game. And if you just don't run maximum tire pressure, you can maybe get away with it for a qualifying lap, but after lap 2, lap 3 of a race, you are toast. So then, just talking about general balance, you maybe want to increase the rear ride height depending how sensitive you are with the bumps on the track. If you're not feeling that confident with the bumps, then go up on the rear ride height, maybe even to 50, but probably about 47, 48 is a good place to be. And then going through the rest of the setup, I like 100% on throttle differential, and 10% again is just a time trial setup. So really, minimum I would be looking at is sort of 30, 35 at absolute minimum. If you want the car to be more stable, go up to 40, but yeah, maybe 30, 35 is a good reference. And then if the car has too much rotation for you, take off a bit of front wing, or you can add a bit of rear wing, and vice versa. If you want more rotation, add a bit of front wing. But that is how to be adjusting the time trial setup to make it good in an online race as well. So let's cut to the hot lap and straight into the breakdown. So here we go then, in GP mode, driving on equal card performance. The reason I do pick GP mode for these laps with straight to flying lap option, because I believe it can make it more recreatable for you at home, so you can recreate the tire temperatures, because the tire temperature, of course, made by the AI, the same as the tire wear on 2%. Whereas if I was doing the outlap myself, maybe there'll be some more variables to it. But with that covered, let's get straight into the lap. Select medium at the last moment, straight into the flying lap, and now opening up the battery to 85% down the straight. You can see just about avoiding that bump we talked about earlier. Into turn 1, down to 7th gear. You can see we ran just marginally wide, so we could have done a better job there. Modulating the throttle and just kissing the apexes, like we mentioned earlier, over the rain guard, keeping the car nice and tight. And now using the overtake button all the way down until 75%. End of sector 1, brake on the curb on the left hand side, down to 3rd gear, a little bit of understeer in the middle of the corner, so was forced to run on the exit curbing. Battery opened again until 65%, downshift to 6th to keep the revs high for the left hander. Open up the corner, down to 5th. Be patient on the throttle here, keep the car to the right, slide the rear axle into this apex now, back to full power, and using the overtake button all the way down until 60%. End of sector 2, start of sector 3, all about the traction through here. Keep it in 3rd gear, patient on the throttle, and now minimize the distance through the rest of this bank corner, and using the overtake button for very, very, very long down the straight. Use the opportunity to open DRS and bring the car gradually to the left-hand side of the track, and burning the battery down to 7%, braking on the curb on the left-hand side. You can see drifting the car through the apex here. Very nicely done. Using the overtake button all the way until we have to focus on the braking zone of the final corner. Throw it in, use the grass on the inside, and the overtake button all the way to the start-finish line. And that is a lap time here in China on F1 2025. As you can see, we did a 1:31.029 going into the sector times now, a 0.9 first, a 0.3 second, and a 0.7 just in the final sector. So there we go. That's how to master China on F1 2025. Hopefully you found the video informative, helpful, and can make your performance even better around this fantastic circuit on the F1 2025 game. What track would you like to see next? Of course, I plan to cover all the tracks on the F1 game this year and upload very similar videos to this as a series. But what track would you like to see sooner rather than later? Additionally, apologies if you heard some sort of audio static in the background when there was no car audio and it was just my voice speaking in this video. I mistakenly put some audio gain in my Streamlabs OBS setting and it was a mistake on my behalf. I fixed it now, so I'm re-recording the outro for this video. So apologies if you do hear that. I'm a rookie, I'm still learning a lot of stuff, but thank you all so much for watching the video, supporting me, and it really, really means the world. So until next time, grazie ragazzi, ciao ciao, bye bye.